Boy, does Team Penske love the desert in Phoenix or what? Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Phoenix Raceway, that 1 mile track sitting in the desert, was surrounded by cactuses, tall hills, and of course, the famous Rattlesnake Hill over in turn number 2. This track definitely provides a lot of entertainment when it comes to restarts, where they're going down that dog leg, running 3, 4, maybe sometimes 5 wide into turn number 1, all looking for the best spot possible. But yesterday was a race where we had a lot of tire incidents. We had the horsepower package make its debut on a 1 mile track. And boy, oh boy, as I mentioned, Team Penske just loves to dominate Phoenix on a special weekend where two of the racing sports combined. Let's talk about all that happened yesterday in the desert. Number 1, Blaney conquers the desert. Ryan Blaney picks up his first win of the season, breaking the 3-race win streak by Tyler Reddick to open up the year. Blaney becomes the first non-Toyota driver to win 2026 by winning yesterday's Straight Talk Wireless 500 at Phoenix Raceway, beating out Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Ty Gibbs, and Denny Hamlin for the victory. It was a special weekend for Team Penske and for Ryan Blaney in general. For Team Penske in general, this is a big weekend for their owner, Roger Penske, because this weekend we had the NASCAR Cup Series and the NTT IndyCar Series running at Phoenix Raceway on the same weekend. The IndyCar Series race on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, where Roger saw one of his drivers, Joseph Newgarden, get the victory after taking a tire gamble late in the race where he restarted 10th, but used those Firestones to his advantage to take victory from Kyle Kirkwood and get his first win of the season and taking the championship lead. But that was also backed up by Team Penske's efforts in the Cup side, where Joey Logano was able to win the pole, Austin Cindric qualified 3rd, and Ryan Blaney would go on to finish 5th. And from the get-go, we know that Team Penske was going to be one of the teams you would have to beat at this racetrack yesterday. While Joey Logano started out strong, but ultimately didn't get the result he hoped for after he was caught up in a late race wreck. Same for Austin Cindric, who was caught up in a wreck that was actually caused by Logano, but thankfully both drivers were okay. The story was Ryan Blaney. He had a great car from the beginning. It took him a couple laps at the start of the race in the first stage to kind of get going, especially on those long runs where he certainly knows how to outperform the rest of the field, and he did just that when he was able to take the lead late in the first stage from his teammate Logano and was able to take stage number 1. Then we get into stage number 2. The car's certainly fast, but they have some problems on pit road. The first pit stop that they made under caution flag circumstances after an incident on the racetrack, Ryan Blaney's team actually didn't get the wheel tight on the right front wheel, so they had to bring the car back down pit road. I mean, the wheel didn't leave the car, thankfully, or else that would have been a big penalty. But the penalty for Blaney was he had to restart at the tail end of the field because of having to come back in and change that tire. But the car was still blasting his way through the pack, showing how fast that 12 car was. But then we had another caution happen later, and then when we had another pit stop, Blaney left pit road, but they didn't get the tire tight again on the right front, so they had to stop in their teammate Joey Logano's pit box for them to tighten up the right front wheel for Blaney to continue on. And you know how Ryan Blaney can get pretty testy over the radio when it comes to things not going his way on the racetrack and certainly on pit road. And he told the guys, we got to clean this up on pit road because the car's certainly fast enough to win this race. And by golly, it was a fast car. He was able to work his way back inside the top 10 at the end of the second stage. And then when we get into the final stage, he's up in the top 5. But a lot of cautions are happening, and he's not really able to get going and contend for the lead against Christopher Bell, who had probably, other than Blaney, one of the best cars yesterday. But then Blaney was able to continue to challenge Christopher Bell once they got into a longer run. Then we kept having a few more cautions late when some guys had some tire incidents or wrecks and everything. And it pretty much was killing Blaney's progress to try to get there. So then we had the final pit stop of the race with about 20 laps to go. Blaney's team took on 2 tires, hoping that would benefit them, while Christopher Bell's team went with 4 tires. We all know what happened last fall, where the last caution of the race happened. Larson took 2 tires versus Hamlin 4, and Larson got the better restart and was able to use those 2 tires to win the championship over Hamlin. Well, yesterday, it played into Blaney's hand, though. He was able to get a couple of good restarts, and he had to work hard against Ty Gibbs, who was leading on the final restart, to work his way by and drive off. Even though Christopher Bell, who had a couple of rough restarts, was catching him on those 4 tires, it still wasn't enough. Blaney did not look back for 1 second and was able to bring home his first win of the season. And Ryan Blaney and the 12 team, we know that these guys are a championship threat. We all know that this is a team you have to watch out for when we get into the chase later this year. He's a very strong contender, especially on these short tracks where now we have more horsepower added, which means more tire fall off. But Blaney can do it better than anybody I've seen on the NASCAR circuit right now. He is just a master at these short tracks, especially with managing your tires and all that. That guy did not look back despite all the adversity with the problems that they had on pit road in stage 2 yesterday. He was able to not get his head down and keep his head up and fight his way back up there, and he was able to pull it off, getting victory at the track where Team Penske has certainly been one of the best the last couple of years. And of course, we all know Blaney, this is where he won his championship too in 2023. That's different this year. He's going to have to obviously, next time we come back in the fall, win Phoenix to have enough points and be consistent at that time to have a chance to run for the championship at Homestead. But a good win for the 12 team yesterday, overcoming adversity, getting the victory, nothing sweeter. I mean, it was a great celebration too because Blaney does some awesome burnouts and loves to find young fans to give a checkered flag to. Only issue, he didn't put the car in gear after those burnouts, so he had to pause before he talked to TV and put the car in park because it was starting to roll down the banking. But thankfully, nothing seriously bad happened. But a great job yesterday by Ryan Blaney and the 12 team. Their first win of probably many more of 2026. Number 2, missed opportunity for Christopher Bell. Aside from Ryan Blaney yesterday, Christopher Bell, by far, had the best car. Long runs, short runs, pit stops, these guys were on their A game yesterday. He led the most laps at 176. He won stage number 2, a track where Bell has also been very successful. Remember, he won last year's race. This guy knows how to get around Phoenix Raceway. He is absolutely a joy to watch at this track, especially coming in with a relatively newer perspective on this race because you saw what he did last year, but this year with the changes with more horsepower added, which means more tire fall off, they decided to not bring back the same setup that they had with last year's car and go a different direction. Let's just say it still worked in their favor yesterday. A great car again on the long runs. The pit crew on pit row was absolutely flawless. They did a lot of things right yesterday, even though they had to challenge Ryan Blaney, Ty Gibbs, and many others for the race lead. That 20 car just did what he needed to do. But when he had to come in for that last pit stop with 20 to go and took 4 tires, he restarted about the 8th spot, and he was stuck there for about a half a lap till we got another caution seconds after that next to last restart. And the final restart, he was finally able to work his way through the traffic to get to second place. The problem was, considering how long it took him to get by some of those guys who were on 2 tire strategies, it hindered Christopher Bell's progress to catch Ryan Blaney, the 12 car. Even though he was able to still sniff him out and catch him, he was not close enough to put any bumper to him and move him out of the way. If we had an extra 5 laps left in that race, I think we would have been talking about Christopher Bell winning and not Ryan Blaney. But unfortunately, that's the price you pay because we saw what tires were yesterday. They were a big factor and a big talking point we'll get into later. But Christopher Bell wanted those 4 tires thinking it would play in his hands. But those guys on 2 tires were able to get going for a couple laps, and it took a while for them to, get some gaps before Bell started to close up on those 4 tires, using them to his advantage and being able to clear himself of a lot of the traffic. So a missed opportunity for Christopher Bell yesterday, but they showed tremendous speed, great progress, and after getting their first top 5 of the season last week, they back it up with another top 5. They're in the right direction. They're now climbing up high in the points as we speak. So despite not winning yesterday, Bell and the 20 team did what they needed to do. Number 3, another top 5 for Ty Gibbs. It's been a tough start to the year for Ty Gibbs with the wreck at Daytona and wreck early on in Atlanta. They were able to overcome that with a top 5 finish last week at Circuit of the Americas, and he backed it up again this weekend with another 4th place effort by him and the number 54 team. Of course, we're still wondering and waiting. Is Ty Gibbs going to win a cup race? Beginning of the season, it looked like this guy's probably not going to be, unless they can get out of a run, not be a contender to make the chase. But now back-to-back weeks of top 5 results have got them now up inside the top 16 in points as we speak, and certainly momentum is on their side. And Ty Gibbs yesterday, he had a good car. Not a race-winning car, even though he was up front late, But they were doing a lot of things right yesterday. They kept making the car better and better on the longer runs. They got themselves up in the top 5 and ran there for a majority of the final stage. They had some good restarts, and he was one of the guys that elected to take 2 tires on that final stop. He actually beat Ryan Blaney off pit road on that last stop and got a decent restart before he was challenged by Kyle Larson, the 5 car, right before the caution came out. When that caution came out, Gibbs was the guy ahead at the last scoring loop, which I thought, honestly, that they go back to the moment the yellow lights come on, you see who's in front by, looking at who's in front of who when the yellow flags immediately lights come on. But I guess that's actually for after, like, the closing laps of a race when you decide who's where. But Gibbs was ahead of the last timing line. He had control of the last restart, but about a lap in after that, Ryan Blaney quickly got by him, and Gibbs just continued to try to hold his ground, but you could tell he was struggling on those 2 tires and ultimately got passed by his teammate Christopher Bell and got passed by the 5 car. But still, another top 5 is building momentum for this 54 team. And he said post-race, this is the group I want to be with and I want to go to work with every single weekend. Well, you got to keep doing that for the next couple of weeks. Get more consistent, and if you put together more consistent results, you may have yourself your first career win, young man. But got to keep that momentum up. You can't take a step back, because if you take a step back and you continuously drop, it's going to hurt you guys in the long run, and you may never recover from that. But back-to-back top 5s, no incidents for Ty Gibbs the last 2 races, last weekend and yesterday. They're heading in the right direction as well. Number 4, tires. This weekend was the first race with the aero package on a shorter track, a 1-mile track for 2026 with more horsepower added, and the tires were certainly going to be a factor because of how soft they were and teams pushing the limits. We all saw what happened to a lot of guys in the championship race last year that had tire incidents, like 3 of our 4 championship contenders, one of whom was able to win the championship. They had a lot of tire incidents in the fall, and yesterday was no different. We didn't see any in the first stage because it was a relatively tame, calm first stage, and we had our scuffed tires on from qualifying. A lot of guys were just basically running the first couple laps and just managing the pace. But then we get into stage 2, and a lot of guys started to have some tire incidents. Kyle Busch being one of them. He had hit the wall at least 2 times yesterday with tire incidents. He hit it the first time, and then a few seconds later, Shane Van Gisbergen lost 2 right side tires and spun in turn 4, the first of 2 spins he would have. And then we'd have a few more tire incidents late in the race, but one of those actually was a brake rotor failure by Noah Gragson, where he hit the outside wall in turn 1. Thankfully, he was up against the wall when that happened, because if he was a little further down, the hit would have been a lot worse. But that dropped a lot of pieces of the brake rotor on the track, and some guys ran over, causing right front tire issues. William Byron, Connor Zilic, Michael McDowell, all 3 of them at the same time ran over that debris and had right front tire problems that they had to come down pit road and take the penalty, restart the tunnel's longest line. What do you expect for them? Still stay out there and wait until pit road comes? Do you know what these right front tire issues could do to right front fenders, especially in these composite body cars? Break them away and you are not competitive the rest of the day. So they had to come in, they had to pit their cars, they had to take the penalty. But we saw right front tires be a problem yesterday. And even late in the race, we had some guys with right front issues. Austin Hill, Connor Zilic again, and Austin Dillon, who was having a pretty decent day. These tires yesterday, as soft as they were set up for, some teams pushed the limit on them, and it really affected some of these guys to have these tire issues. And I know this is still something we gotta work on and manage with tires, as far as what pressure settings that these teams want to have them, especially for right fronts. And that's where the right front is probably the worst, that you're pushing on the brakes, because when you're going deep in the corners and hope that the car turns well with softer brake pads and manage it, but you're also pushing the limit on the rotor that could possibly blow out. And some of these rotors did blow out yesterday, while some guys did have just normal tire incidents. So a lot of those tire issues affected a couple guys' races yesterday. At number 5, racing with the 750 horsepower package. I gotta say, it was a very good race yesterday. Of course, this is the first traditional oval race with the next-gen car having more horsepower for their cars on tracks shorter than a mile this year. And yesterday, we had some obviously very entertaining restarts, but when you saw in the long runs, you'd see guys go forward and go back and being able to pass with the tire fall off, as well as seeing these guys adding extra horsepower for corner exit speeds. It's certainly, and a lot of guys are actually talking about it more so this weekend than last weekend at COTA, because there's a lot of, sectional turns, technical turns where you're having to work hard with your braking and timing as far as when you want to, how deep you want to go into the corner. We didn't hear a lot about talk about horsepower last week. This weekend was a completely different story, and you could kind of see that. And a lot of good side-by-side action. There were some comers and goers, especially with all the yellows and restarts and some tire incidents that played havoc with the race yesterday. But still, a very good first race on a traditional oval track on a short track this year with the horsepower added, and I thought it was very, very competitive. It's obviously the first race of it, and we still have a few more of them to go to see what we're going to see going forward, but a lot of teams certainly nailed it yesterday with how they performed with the horsepower added to these race cars. Some of them still have some work to do and improve their cars as far as long run speed, because some of them would have good fire off speed, but then the long runs, they would fade backwards like they had an anchor hooked to the back of the race car and it just keeps sinking through the field. But I thought there was some good action yesterday with the horsepower package, a good first race for it, definitely something to look forward to, and more races going forward this year. Obviously, the next couple races that we have with it, like Martinsville and Bristol, will be ones to watch to see is what type of racing we will have, especially with tires being a part of it. But very good racing yesterday with the 750 horsepower package. Also, I just want to give a quick shout out and send my best to Alex Bowman right now and hope that he feels better. Alex Bowman was not competing in this weekend's race at Phoenix Raceway because he was battling vertigo. It's something I think that makes you a little bit dizzy and not capable of running in the car. He climbed out of the car late last week at Circuit of the Americas, had to be relieved by Mike Snyder. I think some of those effects caused vertigo or something like that, and ultimately prevented Alex Bowman from running this weekend's race. So Anthony Alfredo, who is actually a Hendrick Motorsports test driver in their simulator and is driving full-time in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series for Viking Motorsports, who actually had a top 10 on Saturday's race, he drove the 48 car yesterday, and it was a little slow at the beginning, but then as we got further into the race, he got better and better and got himself in the top 15 until he got caught up in that wreck of the dogleg with Austin Cindric and Ross Chastain, ultimately taking him out, so it sucks. But I wish Alex Bowman the best. I hope he's doing well, and I hope he's able to come back next weekend at Las Vegas. Obviously, it sucks where he is in points right now. He needs to get himself out of it, but health is the priority. So, Alex, feel better, and I hope you're back in the car this weekend. If you're cleared, we'll be welcoming you back with open arms. Now, we're off to our first traditional mile-and-a-half race of the season at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The restarts, and we've seen how good these mile-and-a-half tracks have been with the next-gen cars since we introduced them in 2022. Next weekend, these guys are going to hope to cash in big rather than crap out at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And of course, we already had a mile-and-a-half race this year at Atlanta, but it was a drafting-style track. This week's more the traditional mile-and-a-half, so we'll see who stands where as far as how good they are, what needs to be done, and how far they've got to get out of a rut. So we're going to see what happens next week, and it'll be a very fun one. Remember, Josh Berry got his first career win in the Cup Series last year with the Wood Brothers. Could somebody else repeat that feat next weekend? We shall see, but hopefully they bring the right car, right setup, and have good luck all the way around to win the race. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and thanks everybody for watching it. Subscribe, like, and congratulations to Ryan Blaney and the 12th team on their very solid win yesterday in the desert at Phoenix. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!